Step away from the server. At 2:14 in the morning, every computer inside the Marston Police Department froze at the same moment. Report windows vanished. Evidence logs locked. Password fields turned gray. A red Federal Preservation Notice appeared across each screen, while the quiet hum of the building suddenly seemed louder than the officers standing inside it. Officer Blake Harrison, a 44-year-old white patrol officer, stopped beside the records room with a portable storage drive in his hand. Sergeant Thomas Keene stood at a terminal near the server door, repeatedly entering a supervisor code that no longer worked. Chief Margaret Dawson crossed the station floor demanding to know who had authorized an outside agency to interfere with her department. No one answered her. Behind the glass wall of a holding room, Special Agent Naomi Carter sat with her hands resting calmly on the table. The 38-year-old black woman wore a charcoal blazer, a pale blue blouse, and dark slacks. Her posture remained straight. Her expression revealed no panic. Even though her secure telephone had been taken, her sealed envelope had disappeared into the records area, and her Federal Bureau of Investigation badge lay face down on an evidence table after Harrison had called it counterfeit. Officer Emily Rhodes stood near the intake desk, holding a telephone on speaker. A woman's voice came through the line with controlled urgency. Every report, recording, access log, and keystroke associated with this detention is now subject to a federal preservation order. No one is to delete, transfer, rename, or revise anything. Dawson moved toward Emily. Identify yourself. Special Agent Elena Ruiz, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Richmond Field Office. Harrison looked toward Naomi through the glass, then at the badge he had dismissed less than an hour earlier. Anyone can make that claim over a telephone, he said. Elena did not raise her voice. Then verify this call through the official government directory. Officer Rhodes already did. The station fell silent again. Emily looked at the audit history displayed on a separate protected screen. 3 different reasons had been entered for the same traffic stop. The first claimed an unsafe lane change. The second described suspected transportation of illegal cash. The third accused Naomi of impersonating a federal officer. Each version carried a different timestamp. Each change had been made after Naomi presented her badge. Keene stepped away from the terminal. This is an internal reporting correction. No, Elena replied. It is evidence. Naomi watched Harrison place the storage drive on a nearby counter. He did it slowly, as though a careful movement could erase the reason it had been in his hand. Dawson demanded that the system be restored. Elena told her a federal judge had already authorized preservation of the department's digital records, evidence room history, vehicle camera footage, and civil forfeiture files. The order had not been created because Naomi was arrested. It had existed before Harrison ever saw her rental car. That was the detail that changed the room. Harrison had believed he had stopped an unknown black woman traveling through the wrong neighborhood. Keene had believed he could rewrite the stop into something more defensible. Dawson had believed the department controlled every record inside its walls. None of them understood that Naomi had entered Marston carrying evidence connected to an investigation that had been building for months. Emily enlarged the report history and saw that the original reason for the stop had been changed 3 times within 50 minutes. Elena asked one final question through the speaker. Who altered the first report after Agent Carter showed her federal credentials? No one spoke. Behind the glass, Naomi looked at the officers who had refused to verify her identity. Her badge had not yet destroyed anything. It had only forced the department to stop hiding what was already there. 73 minutes earlier, Naomi Carter sat in the last occupied booth of a roadside diner 3 miles outside Marston, Virginia, listening to Detective Marcus Hill explain why he no longer trusted the department whose badge he had worn for 11 years. The clock above the kitchen read 1 minute after 1 in the morning. Rain traced narrow lines across the windows, and the smell of coffee lingered between them while a tired waitress cleaned tables near the entrance. Naomi wore a charcoal blazer over a pale blue blouse, dark slacks, and practical black shoes. Nothing about her clothing announced federal authority. Her Federal Bureau of Investigation credentials remained secured inside her jacket, close enough to reach, but hidden from casual attention. Marcus sat opposite her in civilian clothes, his shoulders tense and his voice barely louder than the refrigerator behind the counter. He placed a sealed brown envelope on the table. A federal case number had been written across the closure, but no names appeared on the outside. "This is not one officer making bad decisions," he said. "It is a system they built and then taught everyone to protect." Naomi did not touch the envelope immediately. "Tell me what is inside." Marcus listed 63 traffic stops involving black drivers from outside the county, most of them operating rental cars or vehicles with out-of-state license plates. Several drivers had surrendered cash after officers suggested that challenging the seizure would lead to arrest. Many were never charged with a crime. Body camera recordings disappeared during the most important minutes. Complaint files were closed by Sergeant Thomas Keene. Statistical summaries reached Chief Margaret Dawson but produced no investigation. Marcus had also copied an unofficial watch list containing license plates, driver descriptions, and neighborhood locations used by a small group of officers assigned to highway interdiction. Officer Blake Harrison's name appeared repeatedly in the reports. Naomi opened the envelope just enough to verify the contents without exposing them to the room. Inside were printed seizure records, complaint numbers, camera audit logs, and a small card containing access instructions for an encrypted backup folder. Marcus had created the folder after learning that someone inside the department was deleting earlier versions of reports. "They believe the originals are gone," he said. "They are not." Naomi resealed the envelope and placed it inside a slim document carrier. She checked her secure telephone and sent a coded safety message to Special Agent Elena Ruiz at the Richmond field office. "Meeting complete. Source stable. Departing for secondary location." Her next required check-in was scheduled for 1:30. If she missed it, Elena would begin the escalation procedure they had agreed upon before Naomi entered Marston. Marcus looked through the diner window toward the parking lot. "You should take the highway north. Harrison works the southern corridor." Naomi followed his gaze to her silver rental car beneath a flickering light. "Changing routes now could look like fear," she said. "And fear is exactly what this system expects from people it selects." Marcus lowered his voice. "They do not know who you are." Naomi placed the carrier beneath her arm. "That is the point." She left cash beneath the coffee cup, walked into the damp night, and checked the vehicle before entering. A dashboard camera supplied by the Federal Bureau of Investigation activated when she started the engine. It recorded the time, location, road ahead, and cabin audio. Naomi secured the sealed envelope beneath the passenger seat, confirmed that her badge remained inside her jacket, and entered the address of a protected meeting location. At 1:12, she turned onto County Route 7. Less than a mile behind her, Blake Harrison's patrol car pulled away from a dark roadside turnout. He had not seen her commit a traffic violation. He had only seen a black woman driving a rental car through a part of Marston where his unofficial list told him she did not belong. Blake Harrison followed Naomi's silver rental car for nearly 2 miles without observing a single traffic violation. He remained 4 car lengths behind her on County Route 7, matching every change in speed, while his patrol computer displayed the unofficial alert connected to the vehicle. The rental plate had been entered into the watch system less than 10 minutes earlier after an automated search identified the driver as a black woman from outside Virginia. The alert did not accuse her of a crime. It only marked the vehicle as potentially useful for highway interdiction. Harrison treated that suggestion as permission. Naomi noticed the patrol car soon after leaving the diner. It stayed behind her through 2 green lights, a 4-way stop, and a narrow curve bordered by wet trees. She kept both hands on the steering wheel, maintained the posted speed limit, and allowed the Federal Bureau of Investigation dashboard camera to record the road, the instrument panel, and every sound inside the car. Her next safety check-in was 18 minutes away. She did not reach for her secure telephone. A sudden movement could later be described as suspicious, and Naomi understood that language was often written after the fact to justify a decision already made. Harrison activated his emergency lights at 1:16. Naomi immediately signaled, slowed, and turned into a 24-hour pharmacy parking lot where the overhead lighting was bright and the security cameras faced the entrance. She parked near the curb, lowered the driver's window several inches, switched on the interior light, and placed her hands high on the steering wheel. Harrison remained in his patrol car for almost a minute. On his computer, he entered unsafe lane change as the reason for the stop. The dashboard recording in Naomi's vehicle showed that she had remained centered in her lane. So did the front camera mounted inside his patrol car. Harrison approached from the driver's side with one hand resting near his radio, license, and registration. Naomi looked toward him without turning her body. "Good evening, officer. Before I reach for anything, may I ask why I was stopped?" "You crossed the center line back there." "I did not cross the center line." His expression tightened. "I am not here to debate with you." Naomi spoke carefully. "My license is inside my wallet in the center console. The rental agreement is in the glove compartment. May I retrieve them?" Harrison gave permission. She moved slowly, announcing each action before making it. He examined her District of Columbia license and glanced at the rental agreement. "What brings you to Marston at this hour?" "Official business." "What kind of official business?" "The kind that does not affect whether I committed a traffic violation." Harrison looked past her into the passenger area. The slim document carrier was partly visible beneath the seat. "Do you have drugs, weapons, or a large amount of cash in this vehicle?" "No." "Then you will not mind if I take a look." "I do not consent to a search." The rain tapped softly against the roof. Harrison leaned closer to the window. People who have nothing to hide usually cooperate. Naomi kept her voice level. People also have a right to decline a search when there is no legal basis for one. He returned to his patrol car and called Sergeant Thomas Keene. Naomi could not hear the entire conversation, but her recording captured Harrison describing her as evasive, overly rehearsed, and possibly involved in illegal cash transport. None of those statements appeared in the original reason for the stop. At 1:21, Harrison changed the incident note from unsafe lane change to suspected criminal interdiction. Naomi watched his patrol car through the side mirror. She had been selected before he knew her name. Now he was searching for a reason that would make the selection look justified. Harrison returned to Naomi's window at 1:24 with her license in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The rain had strengthened, drawing silver lines through the pharmacy lights while passing cars moved along County Route 7 without slowing. "Step out of the vehicle," he said. Naomi kept her hands visible. "Am I being cited for the lane violation you described?" "I am investigating possible criminal activity." "What specific activity?" Harrison pointed toward the document carrier beneath the passenger seat. "You were driving a rental car after midnight, refusing a search, and carrying something you were trying to hide." "I told you I am here on official business." "That is not an answer." Naomi looked at the clock on the dashboard. 6 minutes remained before her scheduled safety check-in with Special Agent Elena Ruiz. She opened her jacket slowly and announced the movement before reaching inside. "Officer, I am a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. My credentials are in my left interior pocket. I am going to remove them with 2 fingers." Harrison's expression did not change. Naomi presented the leather credential case through the narrow opening in the window. Her photograph, name, federal seal, and identification number were visible beneath the parking lot lights. "You may verify this through the Richmond field office using a number you locate independently," she said. Harrison studied the badge for several seconds, then gave a quiet, dismissive laugh. "A badge does not make your story true. The verification call will." He turned the credential case over as though searching for a manufacturing mark. "These can be purchased online, not with a valid identification number connected to an active agent." Harrison pressed the mute control on his body camera. The video continued, but the audio indicator disappeared. Naomi noticed the change. The dashboard camera inside her rental car recorded both the gesture and the silence that followed. Harrison leaned closer and spoke in a lower voice. "Women like you come through this county in rental cars carrying cash. Then suddenly everyone has a professional title when questions start." Naomi held his gaze. "My race, my vehicle, and my refusal to surrender a legal right are not evidence of a crime." Harrison stepped back and restored the body camera audio. His next words were louder and more formal. "The driver has presented suspected fraudulent federal credentials and is refusing lawful instructions." Naomi spoke clearly toward the camera. "Please record that you muted the device after I presented my Federal Bureau of Investigation credentials and requested independent verification." Harrison ignored her statement and opened his radio channel. He told Sergeant Thomas Keene that the driver was becoming increasingly confrontational. Naomi had not raised her voice. She had not left the vehicle. She had followed every instruction that did not require giving up a constitutional protection. At 1:27, Keene's patrol vehicle entered the parking lot and stopped behind Harrison's car. The sergeant approached without reviewing either recording. Harrison met him halfway and spoke first. He described a suspicious rental vehicle, possible illegal, cash transport, refusal to cooperate, and a fake federal badge. Keene looked through the windshield at Naomi, then at the carrier beneath the passenger seat. Did she consent to a search? No. Did she explain what is in the carrier? She claims it is federal business. Naomi lowered the window another inch. Sergeant, I am requesting that you independently contact the Richmond field office before taking any further action. Keene held out his hand for the credentials. Harrison passed them over. Keene inspected the badge beneath his flashlight, but did not call the number. Why would a federal agent be alone on a county road at this hour? He asked. Because I was meeting a protected source, Naomi answered. I will provide operational details only after my identity is verified. Keene interpreted the boundary as defiance. At 1:29, he told Harrison to remove her from the vehicle and secure the document carrier as possible evidence of impersonation. Naomi looked once at the dashboard clock. Her safety check-in was 60 seconds away. The badge had given them the easiest path to the truth. They chose the accusation instead. Naomi stepped out of the rental car at 1:30 while the pharmacy security cameras continued recording the stop from above. She followed every instruction calmly, keeping her hands visible and announcing each movement before making it. Harrison took possession of her Federal Bureau of Investigation credentials, her secure telephone, and the sealed document carrier. Keene placed the carrier inside his patrol vehicle without opening it, but he ignored the federal case number printed across the closure. Naomi gave them 3 clear requests before they left the parking lot. Preserve both dashboard recordings and every body camera file. Do not open the sealed envelope. Contact the Richmond field office using a number you locate independently. Harrison entered only one sentence into his notes. Subject claims federal status. He did not record the request to preserve the muted portion of his camera. At 1:32, Naomi missed the scheduled safety check-in with Special Agent Elena Ruiz. The secure telephone in Harrison's possession vibrated once, then again. He looked at the screen but did not answer. Someone keeps calling, he said. Naomi met his eyes. That is another reason to verify who I am. Keene instructed him to place the telephone in an evidence bag. The drive to Marston Police Department took 9 minutes. Naomi sat quietly in the rear of Keene's vehicle while Harrison followed with the rental car and document carrier. Inside the station, Officer Emily Rhodes received the property at the intake desk. She examined the federal badge beneath the fluorescent lights and noticed that the identification number, photograph, and security markings appeared consistent with genuine credentials. Before she could begin an independent verification, Harrison described Naomi as a suspected impersonator who had used a counterfeit badge to obstruct a narcotics investigation. There were no narcotics, Naomi said. There was not even an allegation of narcotics until after I declined the search. Chief Margaret Dawson emerged from her office when she heard the words Federal Bureau of Investigation. She was a 57-year-old white woman who had led the department for 6 years and treated public criticism as a threat to institutional order. Harrison placed Naomi's credentials on the desk and explained that the driver had been found carrying suspicious documents after midnight. Dawson read Naomi's name. For one brief moment, her expression changed. She had seen that name in a restricted notice circulated among command staff concerning a federal review of civil forfeiture practices. She concealed the recognition almost immediately. Secure her in the interview holding room, Dawson said. We will verify this internally. Naomi looked directly at her. There is no legitimate internal process that should replace a call to the issuing agency. Dawson ordered Emily to inventory the badge as suspected fraudulent identification and instructed Keene to move the sealed carrier into the records area. Naomi repeated that the envelope contained protected federal material. Dawson responded that anyone could write a case number across paper. At 1:47, Naomi's secure telephone was powered off and placed in a locked drawer. At 1:51, Harrison opened the incident report and changed the original stop reason from unsafe lane change to suspected transportation of illegal cash. Keene added possible federal officer impersonation. Neither man reviewed the patrol camera, showing Naomi remained centered in her lane. Emily watched the revisions appear in real time. She quietly opened the audit history and saw the first version disappear from the active screen. though the original timestamp remained stored beneath the current report. Behind the glass wall of the holding room, Naomi could see her badge lying face down beside an evidence label that called it fake. The sealed envelope had been removed from view. Her telephone was silent. Her check-in had been missed. The department had taken everything that could confirm her identity, then used the absence of confirmation as proof that she was lying. Officer Emily Rhodes waited until Harrison stepped away from the intake computer before opening the report audit history. The station clock read 1:56 in the morning. 3 explanations now existed for the same traffic stop. The first claimed an unsafe lane change. The second described suspected transportation of illegal cash. The third accused Naomi of impersonating a federal officer. Each version had been created after the previous one failed to support the detention. Emily compared the timestamps with the patrol vehicle recording. The forward camera showed Naomi's rental car remained centered in its lane for nearly 2 miles. The body camera showed Harrison approach the window and question her about cash before observing any evidence of a crime. Then, at the exact moment Naomi presented her Federal Bureau of Investigation credentials, the audio disappeared. 87 seconds later, the sound returned with Harrison declaring that she had shown suspected fraudulent identification. Emily replayed the silent portion twice. Naomi's mouth moved steadily. Her hands remained visible. Harrison leaned close to the window, spoke, and then stepped back before restoring the microphone. Whatever had been said during those 87 seconds had been removed. From his official account, Emily selected the original report, the complete audit history, and both camera files, then placed them inside a protected evidence folder that required a second administrator to alter. She also created an integrity record showing the exact time each file was preserved. Sergeant Thomas Keene noticed the activity from across the room. "Why are you locking that case?" he asked. "Because the reason for the stop changed 3 times, and the body camera was muted after the credentials appeared." Keene walked toward her desk. Officer Harrison clarified his observations as the investigation developed. The first reason was a lane violation that the camera does not show. You are not assigned to review his judgment. Emily looked toward the glass holding room. Naomi sat alone, unable to see the sealed envelope or reach the secure telephone that had been powered off. "I am assigned to preserve intake records," Emily said. "That is what I am doing." Keene lowered his voice. "Unlock the folder and stop digging through another officer's report." Emily did not unlock it. She opened a public government directory on a separate terminal and searched for the official telephone number of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Richmond Field Office. She did not use the number printed on Naomi's credentials or anything provided by Naomi. She called the independently listed switchboard from a recorded station line. While the call connected, Harrison entered the records area and asked for the sealed document carrier. Chief Margaret Dawson authorized him to compare its contents with Naomi's statements. Emily covered the receiver. "The envelope is marked with a federal case number. It should not be opened until the issuing agency responds." Dawson looked at her sharply. "You are delaying a lawful investigation. I am preventing us from altering possible federal evidence." At 2:01, the Richmond switchboard transferred Emily to Special Agent Elena Ruiz. Emily provided her name, badge number, department address, Naomi's credential number, and the time of detention. Elena did not immediately confirm operational details. She first asked whether Naomi was safe, whether her telephone had been disabled, and whether any sealed material had been opened. Emily answered each question. Then Elena asked when Naomi had last completed a scheduled safety check-in. Emily glanced at the property log. Her telephone was taken at 1:30. It received repeated calls before being powered off. The line became quiet. Elena requested that Emily remain on the recorded telephone and preserve every version of the report. She confirmed that Naomi Carter was an active special agent conducting authorized federal business. Emily looked through the glass. Naomi saw the change in her expression and understood that someone had finally made the call. Keene reached toward the telephone. In this conversation, Emily moved the receiver beyond his hand. "The identity has been verified." Elena's voice came through clearly. "Do not release, open, move, or alter anything connected to Agent Carter's detention. A federal preservation request is being transmitted now." At 2:04, Emily locked the original files against further revision. 10 minutes remained before every screen in the station would freeze. The officer with the least authority in the room had just protected the evidence that everyone above her wanted rewritten. At 2:05 in the morning, Special Agent Elena Ruiz asked Emily Rhodes to place the recorded station line on speaker and identify every person standing within hearing distance. Emily named Officer Blake Harrison, Sergeant Thomas Keene, Chief Margaret Dawson, and the evidence clerk assigned to the sealed document carrier. Naomi remained behind the glass wall of the holding room, watching the department confront the first fact it had refused to verify. Elena began with the credential. Naomi Carter was an active special agent of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, assigned to an authorized investigation involving public corruption and possible civil rights violations. Harrison stared at the badge lying face down on the intake table. Keene asked whether Naomi had been working alone. Elena did not answer operational questions. Instead, she asked whether the brown envelope bearing the federal case number had been opened. Harrison stood near the records room entrance with one hand resting on the doorframe. "Not yet," he said. Naomi looked toward him through the glass. The word yet revealed more than he intended. Elena confirmed the second layer. The document carrier belonged to an active federal investigation and contained protected evidence received from a confidential source. Opening, copying, moving, or altering its contents without authorization could compromise both the investigation and the source's safety. Dawson stepped closer to the telephone. "Your agent was stopped during a lawful local investigation. We have authority to examine evidence connected to possible criminal conduct." Elena answered evenly. "The original reason entered for the stop was an unsafe lane change. Your own camera does not show one." Emily opened the protected audit record. The second reason, suspected illegal cash transport, appeared 6 minutes later. The third, impersonation of a federal officer, appeared only after Naomi presented authentic credentials. Elena then revealed the name Dawson had hoped never to hear on a recorded line. Detective Marcus Hill was a federally protected source. The sealed envelope contained records he had preserved from inside Marston Police Department after discovering that traffic stop reports, body camera files, and civil forfeiture records were being altered. Keene's face tightened. Harrison glanced toward Dawson. Elena continued. Harrison's name appeared repeatedly in the files. Keene's identification number appeared on closed complaints and revised reports. Dawson's office had received statistical summaries showing that black drivers from outside the county were stopped, searched, and subjected to cash seizures at a rate the department had never publicly explained. Dawson denied knowledge of any criminal conduct. "No one has accused you over this telephone," Elena replied. "The records will establish what occurred." At 2:08, she disclosed the next layer. Naomi's arrest had not created the federal investigation. A federal judge had already approved legal process for the department's digital report history, evidence room records, vehicle recordings, and forfeiture accounts before Harrison activated his emergency lights. Naomi had traveled to Marston to receive the final source package before that process was served. By stopping her without a documented violation, muting his camera, dismissing her badge, and rewriting the report, Harrison had not prevented the investigation. He had added a new incident to it. Keene moved toward the server room and attempted to enter his supervisor credentials. The system accepted his password but recorded the access request. Dawson ordered Harrison to retrieve a portable storage drive from the records office so they could preserve a local copy. Emily heard the command and repeated it into the telephone. Elena's response was immediate. "No one is to connect, remove, or copy any storage device. Every action from this moment forward is being logged." At 2:12, Harrison emerged holding a small drive, but stopped when Emily told him the federal preservation order was already being transmitted through the city's legal and technology offices. Naomi rose behind the glass, calm but attentive. "Chief Dawson," she said, "release the envelope, preserve the recordings, and let the evidence speak before anyone makes this worse." Dawson did not answer. At 2:14, every computer screen in the station went gray. Report windows closed. Password controls locked. A federal preservation notice appeared across the department network. Harrison stood beside the records room with the drive still in his hand. Keene faced the server terminal. Elena's voice filled the station. "Step away from the server. Every keystroke is now federal evidence." The story had returned to the moment where the department believed its systems had been taken from it. In truth, the systems had only stopped obeying the people who had used them to hide the past. The first federal vehicles entered the Marston Police Department parking lot at 2:31 in the morning, followed by a state investigator, a city technology administrator, and an independent evidence custodian appointed under the judge's order. There were no raised weapons, no shouting officers, and no dramatic line of arrests. The people arriving carried sealed evidence bags, legal documents, cameras, and lists of records that could no longer be changed. Special Agent Elena Ruiz entered the station first and immediately confirmed Naomi's identity in person. Chief Margaret Dawson ordered Emily Rhodes to unlock the holding room, but Naomi did not walk out until the release time, property condition, and location of the sealed document carrier were entered into the preserved record. Her Federal Bureau of Investigation badge was returned from the evidence table. The brown envelope was recovered from the records area with its seal intact. Harrison's portable storage drive was placed inside a protective bag and documented without anyone assuming what it contained. Elena then separated Harrison, Sergeant Thomas Keene, and Dawson so that each could provide an independent account without reviewing the statements of the others. Their system access remained suspended while the city administrator created forensic copies of the report server, body camera archive, evidence room database, and civil forfeiture ledger. By sunrise, the records had begun answering questions the department had avoided for years. Investigators identified 63 traffic stops involving black motorists from outside the county. Most drivers had been operating rental cars or vehicles with out-of-state license plates. In more than half of those stops, officers requested permission to search despite issuing no citation for the original reason recorded. Cash had been taken from several drivers who were never charged with a crime. Important sections of video were missing or muted. Reports written by Harrison repeatedly became more serious after drivers questioned searches or requested supervisors. Complaints involving the same language were closed under Keene's approval. Statistical summaries showing the pattern had been delivered to Dawson's office, but no formal review appeared in the department records. Emily's protected folder preserved the final proof that the practice was still active. Naomi's dashboard camera showed a lawful drive, a proper signal, and no unsafe lane movement. Harrison's camera showed the stop begin as a traffic matter, then lose sound when the federal badge appeared. The report history recorded each new accusation as the previous explanation became impossible to defend. Harrison was suspended from duty and ordered to surrender his department access pending an administrative and federal investigation. Keene was removed from supervisory authority and prohibited from contacting officers whose reports he had approved. Dawson was placed on administrative leave while an outside authority reviewed whether she had ignored warning signs or participated in concealing them. None of those actions declared anyone guilty. The evidence would be tested, witnesses would be interviewed, and every person would receive the process Naomi had been denied beside the road. As dawn light entered the station windows, Harrison looked toward the badge resting in Naomi's hand. "This happened because you are federal," he said. Naomi closed the credential case. "No, my badge only forced you to preserve what you were already doing." She looked across the frozen computers, sealed records, and officers who could no longer rewrite the night. "My badge did not destroy this department. Your records revealed what it had become." 6 months later, the Marston Police Department reopened under independent civilian oversight, a new interim chief, and procedures designed to make every decision visible after it was made. The federal investigation had not ended with one officer. Blake Harrison was dismissed after an administrative hearing found that he initiated stops without documented violations, muted recordings during critical moments, changed reports after encounters, and repeatedly described black motorists as suspicious for exercising lawful rights. Thomas Keene lost his position after investigators concluded that he had approved altered reports, dismissed complaints without meaningful review, and protected officers whose conduct should have been examined. Margaret Dawson resigned while federal and state authorities continued reviewing whether command staff had knowingly concealed patterns in traffic stops and civil forfeiture records. No courtroom result was announced before evidence was tested, but 63 cases were reopened. Money taken from drivers who had never been charged began returning to the families who had spent years believing no one would listen. The department's new system uploaded camera recordings automatically to an outside server. Audio could no longer be muted without creating an immediate alert. Original reports remained permanently visible beneath every correction. Supervisors were required to explain in writing why a stop changed from a traffic matter into a criminal investigation. On a cool October afternoon, Special Agent Naomi Carter returned to Marston in civilian clothing. She wore a charcoal blazer, pale blue blouse, and dark slacks, but her Federal Bureau of Investigation badge remained inside her handbag. She had not come to inspect servers or collect evidence. She wanted to see whether reform existed beyond policy manuals and public meetings. From a coffee shop window near County Route 7, she watched a patrol officer activate emergency lights behind a compact sedan driven by a black woman named Denise Walker, a 42-year-old elementary school teacher returning home with classroom supplies in her back seat. Denise pulled into a grocery store parking lot, lowered her window, and placed both hands where they could be seen. Naomi felt the memory of rain, flashing lights, and Harrison's voice return with uncomfortable clarity. The new officer approached, introduced himself, and explained that Denise's left brake light was not working. He asked for her license and registration, then returned to his vehicle without questioning why she was in the neighborhood, how much money she carried, or whether he could search her car. His body camera remained active. The reason for the stop did not change. After confirming that Denise had no outstanding violations, he returned her documents and gave her a written warning along with the address of a nearby repair shop that stayed open late. "You are free to go," he said. Denise thanked him, started her car, and continued home. The entire encounter lasted 7 minutes. No one knew that a federal agent had observed it. No one needed to know. Naomi remained by the window after the patrol car departed, understanding that justice was rarely as dramatic as a locked server or a badge placed on an evidence table. Sometimes justice was a report that could not be rewritten. Sometimes it was a camera that stayed on. Sometimes it was a black woman driving away from a broken brake light with her dignity untouched. Naomi never opened her handbag. Her badge had forced one department to see her. Justice began when that department learned to see the women who carried no badge at all.